Hello, welcome to Skull RPG Podcast. My name's Dwight Skull.
My name's Jacob Skull.
And today we're going to teach you how to tell your story.
So, Dwight, there's one book that's been out forever called Sun Tzu's Art of War, and in there's this concept of 5 to 6 different types of spies. So, what are they, and how can you use them in gaming?
Yeah, Sun Tzu's Art of War, first of all, is like a must read. It is a tiny book. It is not like it might take you, I don't know, 3 hours or less to read.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a lot of great stuff, especially for a game master or anybody that's interested in any kind of warfare whatsoever. So Sun Tzu talked about the 5 different classes of spies. I'm just going to run through them really quick. There's local spies, inward spies, converted spies, doomed spies, and surviving spies. Now, really quick, here's how this works. The local spies are you're employing the services of inhabitants of a district. So what this means is this really works well. Local spies really work well if you are playing a game where your players have infiltrated into enemy territory. Like you've crossed the border between your kingdom and the enemy's kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're using people that are in the local towns and villages that are not happy with the current rulers to convert them into spies to tell so you can get information about the local areas from them. Now, that said, you might be using local spies without even realizing it. As soon as they go into a new place and they ask for information, they do a gather information check. Technically, that's a local spy.
Mm-hmm.
But you could do it better than that by having them maybe, if you think about like maybe a war film where they get stuck in a certain town because of where the war effort is, like they can't move forward, they really can't move back because there's an army surrounding them and they're not big enough to take on the army, but they are big enough to hide in this town. Those local spies could be really good for your players to utilize to get information, to get food, to get basic needs met, and then also use those same spies to sow dissension and stuff so that you can potentially maybe break that town out of that your enemy's territory.
Or have enough of enough of the army be focused here that they can slip through the gaps of where they weakened.
Exactly, and the local spies might know exactly where those are because maybe you're like the baker. You've actually contracted with the baker as a local spy. He knows he's delivering a bunch of food to this location, which was weird because yesterday he delivered it to that location, which tells him that chances are the army has moved and you might have a gap in where they're at, or at least maybe there's only like 10 people there and not 100 people like there were yesterday, and you could slip through that mountain pass now.
Yep.
And get home. So that's a local spy. An inward spy is making use of the officials of the enemy. And so what that means is this would be more for like medium to higher level characters, or at least characters that could be running into them, where you have like a person who's serving the enemy as an officer or a commander, or
which is what you think of when you think traditional spies. You're thinking somebody who's like the king's aide is also a spy.
Yeah, someone who knows something, not just townsfolk, which is like the top one we just talked about. The local spies are just townsfolk. The inward spy is an official, somebody with power of
somebody who has rank. So like a soldier would have some inward knowledge versus just the baker who's nearby in the town that supplies the military base.
Exactly. And so the soldier's going to say, we're hitting this part in 3 days because I know because we're drilling for it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, now that I have that information, I can take it back to my people. We can fortify that area. Or if we don't want to reveal that spy is ours, we could let them hit that area, but we could move our people out so that they're really hitting maybe only like 2 or 3 guys that we just don't like. And but they're not hitting our entire force there. So it's still a victory for them, but it's not as crushing as a defeat for us.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a converted spy. Now this is interesting. This is when you find a spy in your own ranks, meaning the enemy has planted somebody in your ranks and you've converted them back to be a spy for your. So this would be what's typically known as the double agent, where you now start to use them to feed false information to the enemy as true information, but it's still true enough that it's not obvious. And so you can, and then also too, that spy, when they start spying on you, they come back with information from the enemy and you give them some tidbits so they look like they're still in good standing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's converted spy or the double agent. Now, this is the fun one, the doomed spy. Now, doing certain things openly for purposes of deception and allowing our spies to know of them and report them to the enemy. That's his definition. Now, what does that mean? It means that we have a spy in your ranks, and what we do is we let our spies know who that person is,
To
and
further.
so then that our spy is maybe involved in a loyalty test,
Mm-hmm.
and he immediately says, "Well, I know who's spying for this. It's not me. It's it's Dan over there. Dan's spying on you." And they go and they look through Dan's stuff and they find out, well, sure enough, yes, he is. Dan is spying on us. Well, of course he is. But I told you about Dan, so if everything ever hit the fan, you could throw Dan under the bus, per se, really throw Dan to the gallows, and save your own skin because you're worth more as a spy to me
Than
than
Dan
Dan
is.
was. Yeah. So doom spies are kind of nasty. And then the last one is surviving spies. These are those who bring back news from the enemy camp. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, it's basically um, any of the other four could become a surviving spy. So when they come out and they go do their work and they come back from the enemy camp, they're technically considered a surviving spy. Now, let me give you a quick game idea. Okay, I've given you a quick game idea for local spies where your people are trapped behind enemy lines and they have to basically talk some of the people in the town to help them out, and then those people become local spies. Inward spies are pretty simple. You just announce that maybe there's a spy coming, or you can typically your players won't be recruiting spies typically from what I've ever seen, but you can announce that this person is a spy. They do this a lot in like Star Trek. Um, some admiral tells Picard they need to go to some place right by the edge of the neutral zone and just wait an order. They see something weird coming in, they beam it on board, and oh, look at this, it's a Romulan. What the heck? Oh, that Romulan's a spy, and he's coming home. So he's an inward spy because he's an official of the enemy, and he's also a surviving spy because he's on board the Enterprise right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool, no problem. Then you have your double agent spies, also used quite heavily in some of those Star Trek episodes and everywhere else too. So that one would be fun, is because you could this one your players could discover somebody's being a spy, and instead of killing them right away, they could give them the choice. Well, if you spy for us, we'll let you live. And then they could try to do things and give litmus tests and see whether or not that spy is bringing back information, like, you know, they give them locations for raids and stuff to happen. If those raids happen, they know the spy's still in good standing. Doom Spy, the fun one I have on this is between a surviving spy and a Doom Spy, you could have this great scenario where your players are supposed to go behind enemy lines, find a guy, and their whole role is to kill that person because that person is found to maybe be a double agent for the other team. And their whole role is to assassinate that person before they give any more information over to the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And then a surviving spy could be the same thing, right? Where your guys have to go across enemy lines, break into an enemy camp, and take back a spy because they have information that your team needs. And maybe that person was caught and is imprisoned or is being, lightly tortured. Again,
Yeah.
be really careful on the lightly tortured part, but with certain players. But there you go.
Yeah. Sounds good. One of the ones I was thinking of, just to add a little bit more time, you could have a inward spy that you are trying to break in and enter to remove him because he is trying to bring back information. So then you're having an inward spy becoming a surviving spy because of your players.
Right. Yeah, they got to go free him. Yeah, go. The general of that army is actually a defector, but he's stuck on that side. So you need to go kidnap him
Mm-hmm.
in air quotes, but in reality, that's part of the plan. So that is an example of spies in your gaming.
Hey, thanks for listening.
And for more resources, please go to skullrpg.com.